My dad left a note. Graduation's cancelled. Expect court papers. I didn't cry. I packed my bag. Then I froze the tuition account. 12 hours later he was screaming into the phone. You little traitor. What did you do? I didn't answer. Just hit record. Hey Reddit. My name is Hannah. And if you asked me a year ago what the worst day of my life was, I'd probably say the day my dog died or when I failed my driver's test at 17. But nothing, absolutely nothing could have prepared me for the day I came home and found a note from my father taped to our stainless steel fridge. Graduation's cancelled. Expect court papers. No explanation. No confrontation. No warm fatherly conversation like the ones you see in Hallmark movies. Just 10 cold words slapped onto a piece of paper like it was some final notice from a collection agency. That moment split my life in two, before and after. I stood in the kitchen for a full minute just staring at the words. They looked like a prank at first. I even checked the handwriting again, thinking maybe Michelle, my stepmother, had written it to mess with me. But no. That was my dad's handwriting, sharp, slanted, and always in black pen. He used the same type of pen for signing birthday cards and scrawling passive-aggressive notes about the dishwasher. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't hurt, but because I'd run out of tears for him years ago. I was 3 weeks away from graduating magna cum laude with a degree in political science and a minor in legal studies. My plan was to apply to law school, start a fellowship, maybe even take a trip to Europe with Maya, my best friend since 8th grade. But now my whole world had shifted again. I quietly walked upstairs, shut my door, and opened my closet. I didn't scream. I didn't slam things. I just started folding clothes calmly, methodically, like I was packing for a long weekend rather than a permanent exit from the only home I'd ever known. To understand how it got this far, you'd have to go back much further, to when I was 7 years old. My mom died of ovarian cancer. It was fast and brutal. One moment I was painting rocks in the backyard with her, and the next I was sitting in a stuffy funeral home trying to remember how to breathe. My dad, Mark, was shattered. I don't blame him for that. He adored her. But what came after, how he chose to rebuild, is what broke us. He remarried within 18 months. Her name was Michelle, and from day one she acted like I was the annoying ex-wife's leftover. She smiled too tightly, asked too few questions, and referred to me as her in conversation for almost a full year. She wasn't violent. She was worse. She was calculating. She made sure I sat at the end of the dinner table farthest from my dad. She'd schedule family nights but always exclude me. She threw away every photo of my mother from the living room shelves. I remember once coming home from school and finding the one picture I kept by my bed, my mom holding me in the hospital, gone. I searched everywhere. Michelle said it must have fallen behind the dresser. I found it in the trash the next day. When I told my dad, he said, "You need to stop clinging to the past." By the time I was 13, I learned to keep my head down. Straight A's. Clean room. Perfect behavior. My only rebellion was silence and ambition. I worked harder than anyone else in my school. I won debate tournaments, science fairs, and essay contests. I buried myself in scholarships and SAT prep, not just to succeed but to survive, to matter, to be undeniable. My father didn't raise me. My fear of him did, but I still hoped. I hoped one day he'd wake up and see me again, really see me, not as some inconvenient echo of the past, but as his daughter. The girl who still remembered the way he used to braid her hair when she was 5, but that version of my dad was long gone. And Michelle, she was just getting started. When I started college, my dad set up a joint tuition account. It was more about control than generosity. Every month he'd remind me that he could shut it down at any time, that everything I had was because of him. I kept my head down and accepted the help, knowing I had to finish before he changed his mind. Then came my final year and the internship that changed everything. I landed a spot at a nonprofit legal center in Chicago. We worked on housing injustice cases, small claims, wrongful evictions, rent fraud. It was the first time in my life that I saw what justice could really mean. Real people, real problems, and the power to help. That's when I met Erin. Erin was timid, kind, and visibly anxious when she recognized my last name. At first she didn't want to talk. But over a few meetings she confided in me. She'd worked as Michelle's assistant for nearly 2 years before being fired abruptly. Her offense: overhearing a private conversation about laundering charity donations. According to Erin, Michelle had been embezzling funds from multiple nonprofits she served on. She created a fake administrative shell company and routed donations through it. Erin found the wire transfers, the expense reports, the overseas payments. She kept records, screenshots, voicemails, everything. But she was scared, and I don't blame her. Michelle had money, lawyers, and influence, but I had something else resolve. I couldn't let her keep getting away with it. So I made an anonymous report. I compiled everything Erin gave me into a secure file and sent it to the Illinois Attorney General's office. I didn't tell Erin. I didn't tell Maya. I didn't even tell my favorite professor. I just did it. 3 weeks later it exploded. Michelle was under investigation. Whispers turned into headlines. Donors pulled out. Board members resigned. My dad's name got dragged through the mud too. Guilt by association. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment he'd call me, ask if I knew anything, apologize for not listening. But no. I came home for spring break and found that note. Graduation's canceled. Expect court papers. And I realized it wasn't just Michelle I'd betrayed. It was his whole illusion. His house, his family, his narrative. I had pulled the curtain back and now he wanted me gone. So I acted fast. I froze the tuition account, the one with both our names. I filed to legally protect the balance, converting it into a locked trust account I controlled. Every document, every screenshot, every voicemail, all backed up 3 times. And 12 hours later he called. He didn't even breathe before the screaming started. "You little traitor, what did you do?" I didn't say a word. I just hit record. I replayed that voicemail 3 times the next morning, not because I needed to, I had it backed up already, but because I couldn't believe how calmly I had handled it. "You little traitor. What did you do?" His voice cracked with rage. The same man who once read me bedtime stories and held my hand at my first piano recital was now spitting venom like a stranger. That's the moment I stopped being his daughter in my heart. Maybe I had stopped long ago, but that call sealed it. Something inside me, the part that kept clinging to hope, finally gave way. It didn't hurt like I expected. It felt clean, like stitching up a wound after bleeding for too long. Maya knocked on my door a few minutes later, holding a cup of black coffee and a piece of toast with honey. She sat beside me on her bed and didn't ask questions. That was our friendship. Deep, unspoken loyalty. I turned to her and finally said, "I think he's really going to sue me." She blinked. "Sue you for what?" Being smarter than both of them combined. I half smiled, but we both knew this wasn't going to be a simple family spat. My dad had resources. Michelle still had connections, and they were going to come after me for embarrassing them, no matter how legal my actions had been. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. My university's legal clinic helped connect me to a family law attorney who agreed to represent me pro bono. She reviewed the tuition trust, confirmed everything I did was within my legal rights, and told me point blank that my father didn't have a leg to stand on, but he tried anyway. He filed an emergency injunction to unfreeze the trust, claiming I had misused the account and was acting out of spite. It was laughable, especially since I had detailed records of every transaction and could prove I had never touched a single dollar for anything other than housing and textbook expenses. We went to court. He showed up in a navy blue suit with a silver tie, perfectly ironed. Michelle wasn't with him. She was dealing with her own legal disaster, but I saw her name in a few of the court documents as a concerned party. It made me sick. I was wearing a $40 dress I bought at a consignment shop and the same pair of shoes I wore to my high school graduation, but I stood taller than I ever had before. The hearing was short. My attorney calmly laid out the facts, submitted the voicemails, and showed proof that I had acted fully within my legal rights. The judge took one look at the documentation and dismissed the injunction within 15 minutes. But the part that stayed with me: as we were packing up our papers, my father walked past me. For the first time in years, he looked directly into my eyes. "You think you've won?" he muttered. I met his gaze. "I didn't," when I said. "I freed myself." He didn't respond. Just walked away, his footsteps stiff and hollow on the courthouse tiles. I thought I would break down in the bathroom or call Maya sobbing, but I didn't. I got into a cab, went back to campus, and submitted my final thesis paper, the one I've been working on for 6 months. It was about systemic power imbalance and familial control in modern legal cases. My professor gave me a standing ovation when I presented it a week later. Graduation day arrived quietly but meaningfully. I didn't have a big party or dozens of family members cheering in the stands. Just Maya, her parents, and one small hand-painted sign that read, "Hannah did it anyway." I wore my cap and gown with pride, walked across the stage with my head held high. When they called my name, full honor's highest distinction, I didn't look around for him. I didn't need to. He wasn't there. But that absence for once felt like freedom. After the ceremony, Maya hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. "So now what?" she asked as we sat on the quad lawn drinking cheap champagne from plastic cups. "Now," I said, "I apply for law school. I finally get to live on my terms," and that's what I did. I started working full-time at the same nonprofit where I interned. They offered me a staff position after graduation. Erin and I kept in touch. Too, she ended up filing her own civil suit against Michelle for wrongful termination and retaliation. I testified on her behalf. A few months later, Michelle accepted a plea deal. She avoided prison, but her public image was shredded. She resigned from every board and nonprofit she served on. My dad's practice lost several high-profile clients. They had to sell the house, the lake cabin, and one of the cars. None of it made me feel vindictive, just steady, like the scales had finally balanced. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. It was for my father. I stared at the envelope for an hour before I opened it. Inside was a short note, handwritten like the one that started it all. "You've made your point. I hope you're happy. I hope you find what you're looking for." No apology. No warmth. Just more projection. More deflection. I didn't respond. Instead, I put the letter in the same envelope that held his original message: "Graduation's canceled, expect court papers," and tucked it away in the back of my drawer. A reminder, a record. I'm not angry anymore. Not bitter. Just wiser. Stronger. Sharper. Some daughters grow up trying to earn their father's approval. I grew up learning how to survive without it. And now I don't need anything from him. Not his money. Not his permission. Not even his name.